Hey, HorseCenter fans, Matt and I have a fun show for you today. We are going to unveil our mid-season awards, the best of the first half of 2019. What else, Matt?
And let's take a little look back at the big racing from last weekend. The Stephen Foster and Maximum Securities return to racing at Monmouth Park.
Big upset there, Matt. Plus, we got a preview picks for the Ohio Derby this weekend at Thistledown. Watch it all now on HorseCenter. Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. I'm back in the East Coast, back in New Jersey after a fun-filled weekend in Kentucky with you, my co-host.
Yeah, we ate pretty well, Matt. We met a lot of nice people at Churchill Downs. It was good to have you in town. But what are we doing today? We're doing mid-season awards, Matt. The season does not end halfway through the season. We know that. But, of course, we want to just kind of look back at the first half of the year, look forward to what might be going to happen the second half of the year. So we do our little fun mid-season award show. But first, Matt Schiffman, the big race of this week is in suburban Cleveland. Up there in North Randall, Ohio, Thistledown. It's the 9-furlong, $500,000 Ohio Derby, Matt. We have a nice little field assembled up there at Thistledown.
Sure do. Field of 7. A couple of horses from the Triple Crown Series are in there, and a couple of horses with some nice recent form.
Absolutely. Owendale is the morning line favorite, Matt, at 9-5. I thought he ran a terrific race in the Preakness. They said the rail was the place to be. He was anything but on the rail, making a big wide move, just missed second in the Preakness, coming off a strong win in the Lexington. Florent Giroux is there to ride the Brad Cox trainee, Matt. I think Owendale, as the chalk, is the horse to beat in this Ohio Derby.
I agree with you. A legitimate favorite in there, not the kind of favorite that I've got a lot of questions about. Certainly appears to be a horse that is getting better.
Yeah, he's a deserving favorite, but not a heavy favorite, Matt. That's because if you look at the morning line, you got Long Range Toddy coming out of the Kentucky Derby, where he was running a pretty good race, it looked like, until he was part of that scrum when Maximum Security and War of Will got into it. Global Campaign is also in here, coming off a Peter Pan win against the Belmont winner, Sir Winston. There's an undefeated horse coming from Pennsylvania named Bethlehem Road. And Luch Racing has a couple of long shots in here. But then there's an interesting long shot named Math Wizard. We'll talk a little bit more, Matt, about him. But first, it looks like there's a decent amount of speed. I'm looking at Bethlehem Road, both Luch runners. And even Global Campaign likes to be pretty close to the early lead.
Yeah, definitely a little a good amount of pace in there. No speedballs in there, but several horses that prefer to be running closer to the pace than off the pace. I do like Global Campaign coming off that win in the Peter Pan. Remember, folks, right, he beat Sir Winston in there, the eventual Belmont Stakes winner. Global Campaign has been lightly raced, has had some nagging foot issues all through the spring and up till now. And certainly with a racehorse, that's not a great thing. But veteran trainer Stanley Huff seems to be handling that well. As you said, Bethlehem Road, 3 for 3 at Parks. But this is certainly a step up in class in there. And Long Range Toddy coming back from that Derby, so a little time off after a pretty rigorous campaign on the Derby Trail.
Yeah, Long Range Toddy did some very good running down at Oaklawn Park early this year. Remember, he won a division of the Rebel over Improbable in a strong finish. John Court will be on the Steve Asmussen trainee here at Thistledown. Global Campaign was a talented horse. We knew about him, of course, earlier this year down in Florida. Peter Pan was nice, and yeah, I think Stanley Huff would not be sending him to Ohio if he wasn't healthy with those foot issues behind him, at least for now. Bethlehem Road, he's looked good. 2 sprints at Parks, he won easy, and then he stretched out a little bit for a stakes race there. All 3 of those, Matt, he wired, so I think he's the most likely horse to be on the lead. But those Luch long shots have pace, and the Peter Pan winner shouldn't be too far behind. I think the Peter Pan winner is the horse that I most have to beat, or maybe Bethlehem Road. I have a feeling Long Range Toddy, this is going to be a little bit tougher spot for him, but coming out of the Derby, you don't know. If he runs his best, he's certainly in there. But I like Owendale to rally. If he runs the races he ran both at Keeneland and then at Pimlico, I think he is the horse to beat. But I'll tell you what, man, I do like Mouth Wizard. I think he's legitimately, he's the 5th choice out of 7 in here. Might get 10-1 or so. I like the race he ran in the Wood Memorial where he rallied and just missed 3rd. Heichel beat him late to be 3rd in the Wood Memorial. And then the race at Oaklawn, I thought he made a little bit of a premature move. And those are good horses down there, Laughing Fox and Proverb, to name a couple. So Math Wizard coming off a couple of 4s. He's been the distance 9 furlongs, and I think he's going to rally a little bit in here. I want to throw him in there with Owendale in the Ohio Derby.
Sounds like a good analysis. I think my top choice is Owendale in there because, as I said early, I don't see any real negatives about him, and also the fact that he's a horse that should continue to improve in here.
Yeah, Brad Cox seems like an awfully consistent trainer these days, and the son of Into Mischief. I tell you what, he looked like $1 million both before the Lexington and before the Preakness. Definitely a horse to watch out for. Let's see if he can get the job done in Saturday's Ohio Derby. Matt, hey, let's talk real quick about what happened last week. I think the biggest news, of course, is the Kentucky Derby winner, the horse that finished first before being disqualified. Maximum Security came back 6 weeks after the Derby. Sunday at Monmouth Park, the Pegasus. Matt, I think his odds were 1-20. No one betting on him to win at 1-20 cashed their tickets, though.
That's for sure, Brian. All the bridge jumpers, though, the more than $150,000 show bettors, they at least got to cash their tickets in there. It was an interesting week heading into that Pegasus at Monmouth because trainer Jason Service seemed to be a little bit iffy about whether he was going to run the horse. It was last minute decisions. During the week, he was still a little iffy about it, but on the day of the race, Maximum Security looked absolutely terrific. Jason Service said he was full of himself, very spirited. So they went with him in there. The race didn't start well for Maximum Security. He stumbled, it was, I would describe it as kind of a medium stumble in there, but he righted himself pretty quickly and got out on the lead, but he didn't get loose, Brian.
He didn't get loose, Matt. The stumble out of the gate, really athletic move, kind of showing some of this horse's athletic ability because 10 yards out of the gate, he was already on the lead. That's kind of impressive in its own right. But of course, he didn't run his absolute best in the Pegasus. King for a Day from Todd Pletcher's barn. Decent 2-year-old, only ran 3 times as 2-year-old. Now has come back with a very minor stakes win at Pimlico before this huge upset. Might be a nice horse, but Maximum Security should get something out of this. It looks like a race to move him forward, and provided he does run in the Haskell next month, I think he'll have a better showing there. But it was a surprise. Out in California, Roadster, the Santa Anita Derby winner, was upset by his stablemate, Mucho Gusto. Mucho Gusto looked good in winning the affirmed. Roadster just a little dull. Never really looked like he had a chance to catch Mucho Gusto out there.
Yeah, and I guess now that will make Mucho Gusto, Baffert's horse, probably heading to the Haskell. It seems like this year, pretty consistently, at least on the 3-year-old trail, things are not going quite the way Bob Baffert may have planned them out.
Yeah, and that's true despite the 1-2 finish in the affirmed. It'll be interesting to see the Haskell's looking more and more like it could be a real key race of the year for the 3-year-old colts. we were at Churchill Downs Saturday night, Matt. Our horse, Pain Is My Gain, did not make a good debut, broke poorly, and never really got into it from there. We're hoping for better things, of course, for the Derby Day Racing young 3-year-old, but we did see some good performances. Mr. Money is becoming a 3-year-old to watch. Pate Mile was big, and maybe even bigger was his Matt win on Saturday night. A late bounce back from a couple of Midnight Bassoux handed losses to win nicely in the Fleur-de-Lis. And Seeking the Soul had the momentum going, but Quip gave him everything he wanted down the stretch in the Stephen Foster.
That's for sure. Between Mr. Money and Seeking the Soul, those are a couple of Churchill Downs loving horses, and they continue to perform that way with an ultra impressive performance by Mr. Money in there, who trainer Brett Calhoun said is likely to continue racing in the mid-major Dale Bulls, mid-major derbies, and racing out of his stall, maybe going to the Indiana Derby next time. Seeking the Soul, who, quietly is putting together a good campaign, a couple of close finishes in big races, and now getting the nod in the Stephen Foster gets him into the top 10 in the NTRA poll. That older male division is still wide open, but I like what I saw from Quip in there. Maybe a horse that is going to be a factor in some of those big races down the road.
Oh, that's exactly what I said to you after the race. I like what I saw from Quip, Matt. Quip's still a pretty lightly raced older horse, and that was a good performance in the Stephen Foster. A late, too. A late was a powerhouse late in that Fleur-de-Lis, and it's nice to see the 5-year-old Belmont trained mare come back to her top form. Matt, this night could look even more important if, in fact, the Breeders' Cup may decide to stay away from Santa Anita this fall. Churchill Downs is the obvious choice to replace them if it happens. And these races we saw, like the Foster, the Fleur-de-Lis, and the Matt win, could look a whole lot more important if the Breeders' Cup is, in fact, moved to Churchill Downs later this year. All right, so that's the Ohio Derby preview, a quick recap of what happened last week, Matt. Now let's get into kind of the fun part of the show. Matt and I are going to have some fun with these midseason awards. We have a lot of similar choices, but we have a lot of differences, which I kind of like, Matt. Let's start with the 3-year-olds, the Glamour division, the 3-year-old males. The Triple Crown is over. Matt, this is a jumbled, muddied division right now. Who do you have as the 3-year-old champion if the season ended today?
Well, that is for sure. It is jumbled and muddied, but I had to choose a horse that had won one of the Triple Crown races, because those are the status races, those are the banner races of the division. So I went with one of those winners who also had 2 big wins on the Derby Trail. My 3-year-old male midseason award goes to War of Will.
Okay, War of Will. Yeah, War of Will won the Preakness. He won 2 graded stakes in New Orleans. He also finished well off the board in the Louisiana Derby, the Kentucky Derby, and the Belmont. I know there are excuses there, but certainly a horse that on list of stakes wins this year might be the leader of the division. But then you look at the off the board finishes, and you got to scratch your head a little bit. Tacitus, meanwhile, didn't win the Triple Crown, any of the Triple Crown races, but he's been maybe the most consistent of the Triple Crown winners, with 2 good performances there and a couple of nice graded stakes wins before. Maximum Security, the Pegasus loss was shocking, but you still got the Florida Derby, a 2nd place finish now, and then the takedown in the Kentucky Derby. Sir Winston hasn't won anything but the Belmont. Mr. Money, I think, is the now horse, the streaking 3-year-old. His last 2 performances were really high level. But I went with Omaha Beach. Omaha Beach, I know he's a little bit forgotten now, and he won't be around still for a little while for trainer Richard Mandela. But two nice races out in California before he came to Oaklawn Park, beat good fields in both the Rebel and the Arkansas Derby. that record of 3 for 4 with a narrow loss for me was enough to say Omaha Beach is the 3-year-old champion.
Okay, you surprised me a little bit there with that choice, Brian Zipsey, because I was the one in the spring that was the supporter of Omaha Beach, and you weren't, so that surprised me.
Yeah, and War Will, last time we talked, you had Maximum Security as the leader of the division, and I had War of Will. So who knows? It's that kind of division now.
It is.
3-year-old fillies, though, we're in agreement. And it's not the Kentucky Oaks winner, Serengeti Empress, Matt. We both like, of course, we had to like what we saw from the Acorn winner.
Yeah, we certainly did with Guarana, who, even though lightly raced, 2 for 2, but 2 big wins, open length victories in that sloppy track maiden race, but then against a nice field, small field, but a strong field in the Acorn, was once again an ultra impressive winner by 6 lengths.
Yeah, it wasn't even that small a field, Matt. Listen, 2 races does not a champion or a championship make, but again, midseason awards, they're meant to be a little fun here. We can't deny how good she was in the maiden race at Keeneland and then the Acorn. She beat the division leader, Serengeti Empress. Bellafina's probably still in this race as well with some California graded stakes wins. But Guarana beat Serengeti Empress. Serengeti Empress gets some love for being second after that pace she ran in the Acorn. But Guarana, with those 2 wins, she's the leader of the division in our eyes right now. How about the older male division, Matt? I think this is another head-scratching division so far. So many horses you could look at a little bit. Who do you have as the midseason champ?
That's true, and as we alluded to a little bit with the Stephen Foster result, we got a new winner in there. A lot of horses in the traditional 2-turn older male type of horses. No one has been able to put together a couple of wins. So I put Mitole on top in the older male division in terms of what he's done with wins at 6 furlongs, 7 furlongs, and his most recent victory in that star-studded Met Mile.
Yeah, and I agree with you here, Matt. I am going to preface this. First off, Mitole's been sensational this year. 4 for 4. Trouble for McKinsey in the Met Mile or not, Mitole was terrific in that race as well. All 4 of those races are at 1 turn. I think the best older dirt male race of the year was the Met Mile. So it was pretty easy for me to put Mitole on top, 4 for 4, on top right now. But on the other hand, I don't think he's going to stay there. I think if he stretches out, he might get beat. I think he's likely to get beat if he tries to beat top older horses at 2 turns. If he goes back to sprinting, I think he's a horse who could win the sprint championship. But McKinsey, Gift Box, Vino Rosso, Seeking the Soul, you name it, there's a bunch. Catholic Boy when he goes to dirt. There's a bunch of options in here. It's like you said, somebody's going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, and they're probably the most likely horse to win the older male award at the end of the year. Older female wasn't hard now. It might be hard later, but as of right now, it was pretty obvious who the choice was.
Yeah, only 1 horse to consider. It's Midnight Bisou. She has been absolutely perfect and absolutely dominant throughout the season.
Yeah, she's 4 for 4. She's done it at Houston, Arkansas twice, and then on the big stage at Belmont Stakes Stage, she was a powerhouse. Midnight Bisou, not as good as Monomoy Girl last year, but she's sure the division leader right now. A late's coming. Monomoy Girl, hopefully we have her back sooner than later, but right now it's all Midnight Bisou. As it is in the turf male division, Matt, it's another 4 for 4 type of season, and this horse has to be the turf champ at midseason.
Yeah, yep, that's for sure. No choice but bricks and mortar in there. Been perfect and a convincing winner in all of his races for Chad Brown.
Convincing winner, Matt, and I love that he's done it at 4 different tracks. 3 different distances, different turf conditions, and he looks so easy doing it. Bricks and Mortar is a standout in this division. I think he probably will be all year long. Now the turf females, there's a lot of good turf females in America right now, Matt. Who do you have as the midseason champ?
There sure are. There are a lot of very good ones. There are some that haven't left the barn yet. There are some that are just flashing a tremendous amount of talent. And as I describe all of those, they all seem to be coming from the Chad Brown barn. But for me, based on her big win in New York recently, her 2 big Grade 1 victories, I chose Rushing Fall.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this out, and there's no real questioning how good Rushing Fall is. She's been fantastic in her entire career and in her 2 races this year. I will say though that I don't think she's beaten the best of the division yet in those 2 races, despite them being Grade 1 races in Kentucky and New York. I think things might get a little tougher for her, even if it comes from her own barn. But yeah, good choice there, Matt. But I had to go West Coast on you here. I know you're not a West Coast guy at all, but hey, I lived out in the West Coast for a little while, and how can you not love what we've seen from Basilica? Basilica has just been a winning machine for well over a year now since being claimed. The Jerry Hollendorfer mare is 4 for 4 graded stakes wins, and she just mows them down in the stretch every time out there, Matt. Rushing Fall, Home Marique have been fantastic on the East Coast, but they've run 4 times total. Basilica's done it 4 for 4. For that reason, I have her as the midseason award winner in the turf female division, Matt. Sprinters, we already talked about one sprinter extraordinaire, but there's a bunch of good male sprinters out there too.
There is absolutely, and Matoli is one of them. But since I was able to give Matoli the older dirt male midseason award, then I, no question, have to give my male sprinter award to World of Trouble. Just amazing campaign this year with big victories on the turf and on the grass.
Yeah, and he's done it at a variety of tracks, different surfaces, different track conditions as well. There's not many bigger fans of World of Trouble out there than I am, Matt. However, I'm going to call you Mr. Hedge Fund because you have Matoli as your number 2 on your top 10 poll. You have Matoli as your older dirt male champion. I think you hedged just a little bit here. As much as I like World of Trouble, as much respect as I have for World of Trouble, I can't look past what Matoli's done. And all 4 of his races, the last one, albeit a mile, are 1-turn races. Matoli is my sprint champion at the mid-season mark. All right, Matt, the sprint males, there's a gaggle of good ones. The sprint females is a little bit more of a question mark the first half of the year. Who did you pick out of the pack for this division?
Yeah, it is a pack. There are several female sprinters who have thrown out some really good performances this year, but without putting together a bunch of races. So there's a lot of important sprint races in the second half of the year. Who knows who's going to end up on top at the end of the year? But one of the fastest races, one of the highest speed figures, maybe the highest speed figure for a female sprinter this year, was the winner of the Miss Preakness, and that is Covfefe.
Yeah, Covfefe, Matt, she's a 3-year-old, so I think it's at this point of the year, she could do good things against older horses, but her allowance win at Keeneland and kind of a minor stakes at Pimlico, frankly, are not quite enough for me. Now, she set a track record in that minor stakes at Pimlico. She's 2 for 2 this year. She could be any kind for L&J Foxwoods, but I couldn't pick the Covfefe, the lightly raced 3-year-old who hasn't really beaten much. On the other hand, I wasn't sure who to pick, so I looked at the best race for sprint females this year, and I found Mia Mischief was a pretty impressive winner of that Humana Distaff on Kentucky Derby Day. She's 2 for 3 this year for the Asmussen barn, and Humana Distaff was just tons better then of course Kopecky is faced this year. Who knows what's going to happen in this division down the road? It's way too early right now. It's almost where the 2-year-olds are, a little bit ahead of the 2-year-olds, obviously, but you get the idea. This division is yet to be written. But right now, I would go with Mia off that Humanitas type award. All right, Matt, that only leaves one award that we can realistically talk about at this point, the midseason, and it's Horse of the Year. Drum roll, please, Brett Workman. Matt Shipman, who is your Horse of the Year halfway through 2019?
And again, because we were able to award the performances of Matoli with other awards, I'm going with Bricks and Mortar in here. At this point of the year, 4 wins, as you described, Brian, rattled off all the qualities of that turf star.
Yeah, Matt, don't hedge. Just say it like it is. Bricks and Mortar is the Horse of the Year for the first half of 2019, folks. He's got more grade 1s. He's got more graded stakes wins. He's done 3 grade 1s, 1 grade 2. He's been impressive in all. He's been dominant pretty much in all. He's done at different distances, different places. 3 of the biggest race cards of the year so far, Matt. I'm talking about the Pegasus World Cup Day at Gulfstream Park, Kentucky Derby Day at Churchill Downs, and then Belmont Stakes Day. Bricks and Mortar was one of the stars, and his 4 races this year outdo Matoli, outdo Midnight Pursuit, outdo World of Trouble. Bricks and Mortar is the Horse of the Year for their first half of 2019. At least I got you to vote with me on that one. Hey, those are our mid-season award picks, folks. Tell us what you think. Tell us where you think we were totally all wet with these choices. Matt Shipman, as we close this show, can I get some sort of parting shot from you, my friend?
Absolutely, Brian. So, this is the unofficial halfway point of racing, but we've got the glamour summer meetings coming up. Del Mar is going to open soon. Saratoga is opening earlier than usual this year and racing 5 days a week instead of 6. And so there's lots of important and big races coming at those tracks and all around the country to look forward to. And as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
You're exactly right, Matt. There is a lot to look forward to in the second half of the year. It's been an interesting first half of the year, but can't wait to see what unfolds here in the second half of the season. I tell you what, we got the Ohio Derby, a fun little race at a smaller track this weekend, but I'm really looking forward to that Stars and Stripes card at Belmont Park over the holiday, July 4th holiday there. That's going to be a lot of good racing, a lot of good horses there. So HorseCenter marches on, as do the great thoroughbreds of American racing. Hey, folks, I want to thank our sponsor, the best contest site out there, Derby Wars. And thanks to you for tuning in every week. We sure do appreciate it here at HorseCenter. If you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel here at Horse Racing Nation, please do so. It is truly a pleasure for Matt and I to do this show every week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back right here with another great show of HorseCenter next week.